you very much.
My pleasure, Gwen.
So we turn now to two guests who have been fighting hard on both sides of the issue. Evan Wolfson, president of the gay rights group Freedom to Marry, and Austin Nimocks, senior counsel for the conservative group Alliance Defending Freedom. Welcome to you both. Evan Wolfson, is this a watershed moment in a good way for you?
It is unquestionably a watershed moment for the country. Already couples are getting married in 5 more states, actually 6, with Colorado following the lead. As Marcia just said, we now have brought the freedom to marry effectively to 30 states, covering 60% of the American people. That's almost 2/3 of the American people soon and living in a state where gay people can share in the freedom to marry. And it's also an unmistakable signal from the Supreme Court to the lower courts and to the other courts and states saying that there is no reason for denying the freedom to marry any longer and they should move forward. But at the same time, though a glass 60% full is better than the alternative, there are 20 states where people are still discriminated against, still being harmed, and it's time for the country to come together in national resolution in favor of the freedom to marry.
Well, let's get back on that patchwork question, but first I want to ask Austin Nimocks about something we heard the governor of Utah say today, which is, hey, I still believe what I believe, but it's not worth the money to defend this anymore.
Well, he had a ruling go directly against him, and as Evan just mentioned, there are still 20 states out there. There's litigation across the country. We have 4 federal circuits that have not yet chimed in on this particular question, the 6th, the 5th, the 8th, and the 11th. And so we're a long way from having any form of national resolution on this question. And Americans are going to continue to debate this regardless of what the Supreme Court does or does not do. And if we are going to step forward as a nation, I think it's important that this question be answered by Americans and not be imposed by judicial fiat. That's really the most unfortunate thing about today's decision, is that we have judges making decisions on questions that Americans are perfectly capable of answering.
Would you have felt the same way if the court had ruled the other way, had decided to take these cases and ended up on your side?
Absolutely, because the court would be taking and reviewing cases where federal courts had imposed their will against the will of the people. And the people are mature enough and understand enough to debate the questions about marriage and make decisions. Do we want laws that affirm mothers and fathers? Do we not care about mothers and fathers? These are some of the things Americans are talking about, and they need the freedom to continue to do that.
Well, the fact of the matter is...
Go ahead.
Yeah, the American people have indeed been talking about who gay couples are and why marriage matters and the love and commitment in these families, and have come out in favor of the freedom to marry. 59% of the American people support the freedom to marry. We did a poll last week in Utah, the reddest of red states, and showed a plurality, 49% favoring the freedom to marry. The courts are following where the people are, but in fact, what we have in this country is a constitution that says that not everything should be put up to a vote. And it matters to couples who are being denied day to day. They don't have time to wait for some unanimous vote of everybody to treat them the same under the one constitution that protects all of us.
Austin Nimocks, one of the things Marcia said is that there are other shoes yet to drop. Is that what you're counting on?
So, yeah, there's a lot that's left to happen as far as that's concerned. Like I mentioned, you have the 4 circuits and the 20 states who are continuing to debate this issue and litigate it in the courts. And we are looking, I mean, there are federal courts that have ruled in favor of marriage. The 8th Circuit has ruled in favor of marriage. A Louisiana federal judge ruled in favor of marriage. We've seen courts in Tennessee and Mississippi rule in favor of marriage. This is not over with by any stretch of the means.
Do you have any sense that, wait 1 second, I'll be right back with you, Evan, but
Sure.
does it feel at all to you like there's a sense of inevitability that's kicking in here?
Well, the only thing that's inevitable is that the Supreme Court can't settle this issue any more than it settled the question of abortion in this country. If the Supreme Court ultimately wants to drop a shoe and say we're going to impose same-sex marriage in all 50 states, the American people can choose to accept it or not, in the same way that they've chosen to reject the Roe against Wade decision. So this decision is going to continue to be debated and dealt with by Americans who are living marriage every day. We don't need courts to impose its will against the people or take it away from the people. If the people want to change marriage laws, let them change marriage laws like they've done legitimately in other states. We don't need federal judges doing it for us.
Evan Wolfson, this is an interesting point, which you're the one who brought up the question of this being a patchwork still in place. Is that an acceptable way to move forward?
Absolutely not. People who live in the United States live under one constitution. We're all individuals. We all have those same freedoms and rights and protections, and we all have the same aspirations to love and commitment and building a life together. And marriages should not sputter in and out like cell phone service, depending on which state people happen to be in. We're one country with one constitution. And the reason we have courts is that sometimes when there is discrimination, sometimes when the politicians get it wrong, we have courts and a constitution to guarantee those freedoms. But you know something? This is a happy moment where what the courts are doing is catching up to where the country is. Mr. Nimocks talked about a handful of judges who went the other way. There are more than 40 state and federal courts that have looked at this question, now including the U.S. Supreme Court, and have said there is no good reason to continue this discrimination.
Let me ask about the U.S. Supreme Court, and let's take a step back from this. Does a ruling or a non-ruling like today affect the Roberts legacy, the legacy of the Roberts Court in your mind, Austin Nimocks?
Well, I think that's a good question that may be a bit premature at this point, because as Marcia said, this is far from over with. I mean, the Supreme Court stepping away from this first wave of cases doesn't mean it's going to step away from the second wave of cases or the third wave of cases. So it's a little bit early to see what the court's legacy is on this. What we're hopeful for is that the court's legacy on this question will be one of restoring the question to the American people. If they want to vote in same-sex marriage, let them vote in same-sex marriage the way they've done in several states. If they want to maintain marriage as one man and one woman, let them do that. And different states differing is the most American thing we can have in this country. States differ on all kinds of important legal questions all the time. That's what makes America great.
Evan Wolfson on the Roberts legacy piece.
Yeah, well, first of all, what makes America great is that we have a constitution that protects liberty and justice for all and treats all of us equally and guarantees that equality, doesn't put it up to a vote. Your freedom of religion, my freedom of speech getting put up to a vote. We have basic freedoms, and that's why we have a constitution. But fortunately, we also have hearts and minds that when people listen to the real stories of real families and look at their love and look at the joy that's spilling out now in Utah, in Oklahoma, in the other states that we've won today, and they see families helped and no one hurt, the American people, like the courts, have affirmed the freedom to marry. And I think it will be in the Roberts Court's interest also to put its stamp on this movement in our country in the same way that the Supreme Court, having ducked interracial marriage at first, embraced the freedom to marry in the Loving decision two generations ago. I think that is where we're headed, and whether it's through the multiple lower courts that are ruling in our favor or through the Supreme Court, we're going to keep working until we've brought the freedom to marry home nationwide.
Evan Wolfson of Right to Marry and Austin Nimocks of the Center for Marriage and Family at Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.